The Adventures of Irvingman.
It's September 19th, 1952. Television viewers tune into the show they've been waiting for, and for the first time they hear those stirring words.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman.
Yes, the introduction that spawned 100 silly jokes, starting with this one.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's a bird.
But it didn't end there. We had to get a rundown of who he is and what he does.
Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper.
When I was little, the sound quality on our TV was poor enough that I always thought they were saying a quaint metropolitan newspaper. I could never figure out what was so quaint about it.
Fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
This Superman doesn't really care about the whole world, just America. Because all true blue good people do, right? No matter if they live in Lower Slobovia and never heard of America, right? But that was the tone of the country at the time, as I mentioned in my look at Superman and the Mole Men.
And now, another exciting episode in the Adventures of Superman.
Right now, we're doing the origin story. In our day, it's been done dozens of times, and almost everyone on the planet who speaks English knows it. Not so in 1952.
Come with us now on a far journey. A journey that takes us millions of miles from the Earth, where many years ago, the planet Krypton burned like a green star in the endless heavens.
You may recall that was the whole problem. The planet was about to explode and burn. That's why Jor-El and Lara sent their baby off in a rocket. I think he means it shone in the heavens, since planets only reflect light, they don't generate it. They did know that in 1952, so that's just a bad choice of words.
Here, civilization was far advanced. It had brought forth a race of supermen, men and women like ourselves, but advanced to the absolute peak of human perfection.
We've departed from canon a little here. In the comics, the Kryptonians weren't super people, but they were technologically advanced and living under a red sun. When Kal-El landed on Earth, it was the planet's yellow sun that gave him his amazing abilities. How it does that, we don't start asking until around the 60s or 70s. For the average reader, it's enough that the different sun makes him powerful. We zoom in on the Planetary Council, where top scientist Jor-El has been summoned. The council's leader, Roseanne, calls the meeting to order.
Members of the Governing Council, you have been summoned here on urgent business.
Roseanne in 30 years, maybe. It'll take her at least that long to grow a beard like that.
I have completed my solar calculations. And much as I dread uttering these fateful words, I have come to the conclusion that Krypton is about to be destroyed. The sun is gradually drawing Krypton closer to it. Within a month, possibly only a week, perhaps even in a matter of days or hours, the gravitational pull will be so strong that Krypton will not be able to weather the strain.
As I said, most of us know the story. The council laughs at him. He's built a small prototype of the kind of ship they'll need to carry them all to Earth. He just needs the manpower and materials to build more of them, and the whole population can go. But the council doesn't believe him and calls him a nutcase and all the rest. It reminds me of certain aspects of our government today. They commission a major study, and when the results come in, they ignore them and say it ain't so. When will people stop being stupid? Jor-El was going to test his model and then build a ship big enough to carry his whole family, but he's run out of time. The planet is starting to break up already. They make the fateful decision to send their infant son to Earth in the ship, and he blasts off just as the planet explodes, and all those councils go flying off screaming, "It's not happening!" I made that last part up, but it wouldn't surprise me. The ship crashes to Earth just as the Kents are trying to figure out what that god-awful noise is. Turns out it was the ship screaming through the atmosphere.
Sarah, look!
Sarah? And we'll find out later that his name is Eben. Since the earliest days, their names were Jonathan and Martha. I don't know why we've changed two perfectly good 1930s style names into something from the 18th century, but there we are. Eben and Sarah. At least their last name is still Kent. Eben, you don't know how hard it is to say that with a straight face, uses some dirt to put the fire out when he realizes there's a baby inside.
Here. Burn much?
Not burned at all. Blanket ain't even scorched.
Sarah, look.
It's gone.
Like it was never there.
Like that big smoldering crater was always there, just another natural phenomenon. I don't know why we're portraying them as though their mother and father were brother and sister. They aren't sure what to do. If they turn him over to the authorities, nobody will believe their story. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. The baby's real enough and needs caring for. No, they need a different plan, and it's the obvious one. Sarah's all excited. They never had children of their own. So they decide to keep it. I don't know why they keep saying it instead of him, but whatever this is, they're keeping it and raising it as their own. Because the sudden appearance of a baby Kent won't raise any eyebrows. Nope. Folks won't believe their story about a crashed rocket, but they'll be fine with a child just appearing out of nowhere. That's how folks are around these here parts. When he's about 12, Clark wants to know why he's so different from all the other kids. He's stronger, faster, and he can see through things. His parents have let him go all this time without knowing. I think Jonathan and Martha Kent would have been much better parents than Eben and Sarah Kent. It's Clark's 25th birthday. His mom sent him into town for some meaningless stuff so she could get the place ready for his party. Unfortunately, it's not party time.
Eben, what's the matter?
Help. Couch.
I can empathize. That's similar to what happened to my dad. There's no 911 yet. All they can do is dial the operator and say they need an ambulance. As far out as they are, it could take half a day for one to get there. Instead, he has her call the doctor. This was also when doctors made house calls. But we know the canonical story. It's tragedy time. And with no other direction in his life, Clark decides to move to Metropolis and find himself.
I still hate to leave you, Mother.
I'm gonna be just fine. With Cousin Edith coming on to live with me and all. Besides, you got a great responsibility to the world, Clark. You've got to accept it.
He may need a little nudge to get him out of the nest.
You sure you packed that costume I made for you?
It's in the suitcase.
Nothing'll ever hurt it, Clark. Not acid, nor fire, nor nothing else. It's made out of the red and blue blankets you was wrapped in the day your pa and me.
I know, Mother.
How did she cut it to make the costume pieces? How did she sew it? That's something I've always wondered. At the Daily Planet, Clark meets his first crisis requiring his special powers. Perry White doesn't want to see him. That blew his whole plan, so he's just gonna jump. While Lois Lane is in Perry's office helping him open a carafe of some kind, Clark walks around that ledge.
Who the blazes are you?
My name is Clark Kent, sir.
I told that girl not to...
Please, don't blame your receptionist, Mr. White. She doesn't even know I'm in here.
What do you mean she doesn't know you're in here? How'd you get past her?
Well, I didn't. You see, I came in through the window.
White can't believe it. Nobody's that crazy, except the guy standing in front of him. Before they can get very far, Jimmy Olsen comes barging in with a breaking story.
An oil company blimp attempting to land at Metropolis Airfield in a high wind pulled 11 men aloft, clinging to the landing ropes. 10 dropped off safely, but 1 man is still hanging to a rope while the blimp cruises at 1,000 feet above the field, unable to land.
Perry sends them both to cover it. Once they leave, Clark says, "If I can get that story for you, will you give me a job?" Perry says, "All right, if you can do that, you've got a job." Perry has no idea what kind of story he's in for. Too bad he can't do a Peter Parker and take pictures while he does his heroics, but Spider-Man wouldn't appear for another 10 years.
Just like I told Mr. Kent, there I was hanging there for what seemed like years.
Then your hand slipped from the rope.
1,000 feet up. I knew I was a goner.
That's enough pictures, Joe. Get them on metal for the next edition.
Well, then I thought I must have flipped my lid from being so scared. 'Cause right then, this guy in a red and blue costume comes flying through the air and catches me.
So Clark did get the exclusive story. For all his volatility, Perry White is an honorable man. He'll keep his promise.
It's ridiculous. There can't be any such thing as a man who flies through the air.
Well, I know it, Mr. White, but it happened. I'm here, ain't I? And I'm alive.
How many times have we heard it can't be, but it is? I have one of those myself. This hand, I broke these two bones when I was 15 and they grew together. I had a big lump here that was kind of my fidget bump, my worry rock. More important, these two fingers wouldn't work independently. My lead guitar playing days were over and I had to develop my own weird technique for playing the piano. Then one day, the lump was gone. The fingers worked again. I enjoy playing guitar again, and I'm relearning how to use my left hand on the keyboard. People ask me how I know there's a God, how I know Jesus Christ is real. I carry the evidence in my body.
It happened all right, Chief. Just as we got to the airport, we saw something streak across the sky and catch this man.
We thought we were crazy, too. My brain was whizzing around in my head, and the next thing I knew, this super guy landed me behind one of the hangars like on a feather bed. Then I made like a schoolgirl and passed out.
I think he earned it, and Clark earned the job and the byline.
There are one or two things I haven't got quite straight in my mind, Mr. Kent. For example, how did you leave here later than we did and beat us to the airport?
Is that all?
Not quite. How come you found the man behind the hangar at just the right moment to get his exclusive story when every top experienced reporter in the business was breaking his neck...
Or her neck.
Or her neck to get that story?
Maybe I'm a Superman, Miss Lane.
And that's it. The episode ends right there with Clark taunting Lois Lane and daring her to figure it out. It'll become kind of his hobby. As versions of the Superman origin story go, this one is fairly mediocre, but it'll do. And it did answer one question I've always had. Clark Kent came from Smallville, Kansas. He has no experience that we know of as a news reporter, no schooling or training. He just walks in and asks for a job and somehow becomes one of the paper's top reporters. How did he do that? Here we have an answer. He proved himself. He said, in essence, yeah, I'm from Hickville and I have no experience, but if I demonstrate that I can do the job, give me your promise that you'll give me the job. They both come through and our stage is set. Superman is in a job that keeps his finger on the pulse of the city and the world. Perry White has an exclusive story that'll put his sales miles ahead of the other papers. And Clark Kent has already managed to irritate Lois Lane. Perry's gotta love that.
Until next time.
Video by Harry Harrison. Audio by Morris Morrison. Wardrobe and makeup by Alice Allison. Your announcer has been Peter Peterson.